Hi everyone, welcome back to Law School Gems with Bria. My name is Bria Riley and I'm the founder of Law School Gems, and today we are going to get into interview prep part 2. So we're going to be talking about things like your strengths and your weaknesses and how to prepare for those pesky interview questions that undoubtedly come up about what's your biggest weakness and how can you improve upon it and what have you done to improve upon it. Those types of interview questions. So we're going to get into a little bit of that today. But before we dive in, a little bit about me for those of you who are new to the channel. I am Director of Corporate Counsel for the Marketing, Advertising, Regulatory, and IP group for a publicly traded company here in Dallas, Texas. And I just wanted to affirm all of you today, specifically my returning gems. Thank you so much for coming back and tuning in to the channel. And I just wanted to let you all know that it's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent, right? So all you have to do is continue to put one foot in front of the other, continue to focus on your micro goals, and continue to set those goals each day to help you achieve the overall dream or the overall goal. So that way you don't get overwhelmed and you can keep going with what you're trying to accomplish and just be human. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have good days. And all of that's fine as long as you stay true to who you are, stay consistent, stay humble, stay dedicated, and don't try to be a perfectionist. So without further ado, let's dive right on into interview prep part 2.
We are born to win. Come and learn the basics with Law School Gems.
So you have to know your strengths and you have to know your weaknesses going into an interview. So an interviewer might ask you, and this is a commonly asked question, what's your biggest weakness and how have you improved upon it? A way to answer this question is, if you were a law student, right, and most of you guys are, say for instance, legal writing. Let's take that as a weakness where you struggle. That's one of your struggle areas. Legal writing is so foundational to being a lawyer in any type of area of the law that you practice. So that's a good one to wedge into something that you can pivot and show how you were improving. So you might say something like, I'm always trying to hone in and improve upon my legal writing skills. Although I feel like I'm at a skill set level that is appropriate for where I am in law school, I'm always looking for ways in which I can improve upon that so I can be even above average when it comes to my legal writing skills. For instance, last semester I got a B+ in my legal writing course, and I knew there were some tips and some tweaks that I could make in order to ensure that I got that A the next time around. So what I did was I focused on catching those minor details, paying attention to the prompt that my professor put before me, doing a grandiose amount of research and making sure that I was really being analytical and thoughtful about my answers, and then putting that in an organized format that made sense and followed a good roadmap that was coherent for my professor. And based upon that, I received that A in my next course. That is an amazing model answer for improving your legal writing. You address the problem in an area where you struggle. You said that you still think that you're on skill set level appropriate to where you are, which is good because it shows that you were still competent, but you also talked about how you can improve and the things that you did to implement how you've improved and what the success outcome was of that pivot. And that's amazing. And that's what an employer wants you to do and what they're looking for when they really ask you that question. Now let's talk about if you are going to be interviewing virtually. So say you get an invitation to interview for Zoom or WebEx or Teams or something like that, and you're going to be using that software in order to conduct your interview. You want to make sure you download that software way in advance of when your actual interview is set to take place, so that way you can ensure there are no technical difficulties on the day of the interview and that you can log in appropriately, your audio is going to sound good, your microphone is working, and your visuals look good around you. Downloading the virtual interview software will also help you learn how to navigate the platform in case you have to use some of those navigation skills during the interview. What if you have to share your screen, or what if you have to change your background because a distraction comes in and you don't want people to see what's around you? You need to be able to get ahead of that and know how to navigate that platform appropriately before you get into the interviewing phase, so that way you're not stuck asking your interviewer how to do this or how to do that, because that's going to take up the bulk of your interviewing time, and that's not what the interview is supposed to be for. And it's going to take away from that interviewer getting to know who you are and how you might contribute to the role in which you are applying. You'll want to find out how to adjust the viewing panel on the interview software that you're using in order to effectively communicate. You want to find out how to adjust the sounds and the levels and the visuals, like I said before, or any colors. If you're noticing anything or you're getting any weird feedback, you want to make sure you're addressing that all before you get to the interviewing stage. You also should ensure that the first time you're actually using the software is not the day before the interview or like the day of, a few hours before, maybe a few minutes before, because anything that can go wrong will go wrong. It will happen, right? And you don't want to be the person that gets the short end of the stick because of it. You want to check your lighting in advance of a virtual interview as well, right? As you can see, I'm in a very lit area and it looks visually appealing, right? And you want the same thing for your interview because you are trying to put your best foot forward. So if you appear in horrible lighting and it doesn't make you look like you are presentable or ready for this interview, that is not going to work in your favor in terms of giving you that competitive advantage over your other competitive candidates who may have better lighting than you or just a better setup. Also, make sure to check your sound in advance. It is very important that you are clear and coherent and that the interviewer can understand what you're saying and that there isn't any weird audio things happening, because in a virtual interview, you can't pick up on body cues. You're not in person. So the only thing that they can really pick up on as an employer interviewing you is your audio, right? And what you're saying and whether you're being audible and that being able to come through effectively. So check your Wi-Fi, check your internet, make sure you're not having any disruptions or connection issues, because that's going to poorly contribute to your performance during the interview as well. Perhaps you might also want to consider getting a webcam. A lot of times people use the camera on their laptop or their computer and it's not the best camera that's out there. And so it may create a fuzzy visual or you may get some feedback during the audio or whatever the case may be. But an attachment that's separate as a webcam that you can affix to your computer may be a better suit for you when it comes to virtual interviews. Know where you are going to participate in a virtual interview. So in a virtual interview, you want to set the stage, right? You are inviting someone into your home or your workspace or wherever you're going to be conducting the interview, and you want it to look presentable. You don't want there to be any distractions. You want it to be in a quiet place where you can have as much time as necessary dedicated toward this interview. That means no pets, no dogs howling in the background, no cats meowing, no babies crying. Although we love all of those things and they're a big part of our lives, they're not really appropriate for the interview. And again, you don't want distractions to take away from what you're saying and from the memories that you're going to create with your interviewer when they know that you are the right candidate they're supposed to pick for this role. It's kind of hard to communicate that if there are a lot of distractions going on. You also want to check your background. Make sure you don't have anything hanging up that can be offensive, right? That can be associated with a political affiliation, because maybe that could be something that rubs the interviewer the wrong way. And maybe you don't care. Maybe you want that stuff to stay to see how they will react, to know if this is going to be a good company or culture fit for you. I think that's a huge risk you're taking, but it is totally up to you. But make sure that if you do want to put your best foot forward and you don't want to alienate an interviewer or make them feel some type of way, that you remove any offensive things in the background as well. Also, make sure to check your angles, okay? And this is not just for my ladies, this is for men as well. We know how we present on camera when we are at our best. We know what angles work for us, and we know how to put that best foot forward for an interview, especially a virtual interview that you are dying to get and for a role that you want, right? So make sure that you are checking your angles and that you're positioning the camera in a way that makes you look more favorable during the interview process. If you were interviewing in person, make sure that you arrive about 15 minutes early so you have an opportunity to navigate through a labyrinth of a lobby that you may need to get to, or in case you get lost, or whatever the case may be. If you have to sign in or check in with security or get a name badge, if someone has to come and get you, you want to give that time for yourself so you can take care of those administrative things before you actually get to the interview. So that way you can use your interview time for just that, interviewing, and not having those other things bleed over into your actual interview time. If you don't know where the employer is located or you've never been there before, it might be a good opportunity for you to drive to that location beforehand from wherever you're going to be coming from on the day of the interview, so you could see, hey, what the traffic looks like. How much time should I give myself to get there? Where is parking? How do I find the building? And all of those things. You don't want to be left scrambling on the day of to try to get those things under your control, when, again, if something can go wrong, it will. So prepare as much as possible beforehand, so that way you don't have to confront those issues the day of the interview. And again, make sure that you are researching the salary requirements. I know we got into that a little bit in previous videos of Law School Gems, talking about internships and jobs and interview prep part 1, but make sure you research the salary requirements. And what does that look like? Well, number 1, you're going to want to research what the likely salary requirements are for that industry. for that particular employer, for that role, and for the number of employees that they have for the current year, right? The current fiscal year, and budgeting and financials, and if they were profitable or lucrative that year. And then also for your years of experience and your type of education and what you have to offer in your background. Specifically, if, like, let's say you were interviewing for a legal function in a banking role or in a finance industry, and you have previous banking or finance experience in a non-legal capacity, well, that's going to give you that competitive advantage in comparison to your peers and may allow you to ask for a higher salary rate than would someone else who doesn't have that background specific to that industry. So it's things like that that you want to research when it comes to salary requirements, including the geographical location and the cost of living, but not just the cost of living, the cost of labor. That's the real big key ticket item here, is the cost of labor in the area in which you live and how that affects or drives up the salary requirements. And then you want to give a range of salary requirements, not a specific number, but a range. And at the low end, it should be the number that you are not willing to accept anything less than that amount. So let's just say if your range was from 90,000 to 100,000. On the low end, the 90,000 would represent the number in which you are not willing to accept anything lower than that. And then the high part of the range should be the wishful thinking part of the range, right? So that's the part where you're hoping to get it, but if you don't, you're like, okay, well, at least I got what I wanted. But if you start off at a number that you really don't want, and you give that to the employer, well, they're only going to negotiate down from that number, right? So you may never reach the number that you actually want or that you actually need to take on this role, but you will have shot yourself in the foot already at that point because you gave a salary range or a salary expectation that was well below what you actually wanted. So be careful when picking that salary range and when conveying it to your employer, and remember to only bring this up in an interview if they ask the question. So if the employer poses the question to you, hey, what are your salary requirements, and are you aligned with what the salary rates or the ranges are for this role, then you can give that information to them. But otherwise, this information is really for you to tuck away in your back pocket in the event you get the offer, and then you can start negotiating salary. Another good thing about the salary range, if you're unsure, is to ask the recruiter or the HR business partner prior to actually getting to the live interview, right, with the hiring and decision makers, right? So usually there's a person that connects you to that person. The person that's connecting you, your liaison, your advocate, that's the person you want to ask about salary in the preliminary conversation when trying to research or determine what your salary range should be. And the specific question you want to ask them is, what is the high and low, or the max and minimum, not minimum to median, because sometimes they will give you a range based upon the minimum being at the low end and the median meaning average, right, or middle amount of income that they're willing to pay you at the high end, but it's not their max number. It's not as high as they can go, and you're leaving money on the table. And you always want to start how you want to finish. And if someone else starts in the same role at the same company in the same industry as you, and they start off making more than you because they negotiated more, it is impossible, right? Like monetarily and mathematically impossible for you to catch up to that person, absent just a crazy stellar promotion in which you manage to negotiate more. But when it comes to performance reviews and the like, you're never going to be able to compete with them on that stage when it comes to money, because they're always going to be above you, specifically if your company is giving categorical increases that are based upon the year, the performance, and a certain amount and a percentage that they don't go over. Well, then you're lockstepped into that amount, and you're not going to be able to catch up to that other person who negotiated more and who did not leave money on the table. So you don't leave money on the table, specifically for women, for first generation law students, for minority students who don't typically ask for what they want or what they're worth. Make sure that you're going in there advocating for yourself, because remember, you are your own best advocate. All right, y'all. So these are all of the interviewing tips that I have for you today. And we are closing out internships and jobs and interview prep with this video right here. I really do hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to like this video or share it with someone who you think could benefit from it. And not just a law student. These are kind of tips that would be helpful for anyone on the job market right now, but specifically someone who is a first semester law student interested in applying for a role for summer 2023, or someone who's interested in law school, or someone who may be further along in their legal career and they need to pick up some gems along the way about how to to prepare for an interview for that dream job or opportunity or role or internship or whatever they are applying for right now. And I'm sending all the best vibes, manifesting all the great energy for your career objectives as well. And be sure to subscribe to this channel so that way you get notifications for when I post videos like this. And thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. It really helps me grow this channel to reach more audiences like you. And if you have any comments, tips, tricks, or questions, drop them in the comments below so I can respond to them. I love sharing and interacting about stuff like this because the more knowledge we have, the better we are as a people, and the more transparent we're able to be when it comes to fighting for our worth and getting through the interview and the career stages process. So I will see y'all next time. Bye, y'all.